So there's a lot of truth to the fact that the Mullah regime, like taking out the Mullah regime, the challenges posed by taking out the Mullah regime is not the same as taking out Maduro. The target set's deeper, the country's larger, it has more air defense. That doesn't mean it's impossible. There's a lot to be said, though, with what a lot of people said, and there's a reason why, Vice President Vance said what he said. It's true. President Trump very much drew a red line. We have to back it up to ensure U.S. threat credibility and deterrence. If that is not done, it will be a disaster worse than when Biden recklessly disengaged from Afghanistan. Now, that being said, just like I try to kind of push this point home, taking like the brave Iranian protesters' resistance against the Mullah regime and or where the Mullah regime fits in the broader global conflict that's going on between the United States-led Western alliance versus the autocratic bloc. Putin's criminalized counter-intelligence, Chinese Communist Party, North Korean regime, sub-state people everywhere. So those are all moving targets, right? As we're moving stuff towards Iran for good reason, like there's a lot of people pushing for a much broader target set, including things like hitting IRGC and besiege headquarters, the prisons to free those prisoners. I won't go into detail, right? Taking out the leadership, siege, or suppression of enemy air defense, specifically TELs or the mobile launchers and all that, WMD friggin' stockpiles. As we're doing that, the Chinese Communist Party is bumping up its aggression towards Taiwan, saying which one you're going to go after, right? Because if you spend your long-range munitions, say, in Iran, that's the calculation by the autocratic bloc. Well, that means that's less missiles for Taiwan. Well, there are other ways to skin that cat, which I'm not going to talk about.
Okay, but Jeffrey, my specific question, and if we could get to this like as short as possible, my specific question is the comparison between Venezuela and Iran, and regarding to how impossible it is to accept anything other than Pahlavi, given what the Iranian people are fighting for. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, that's why I said that I kind of referenced why JD Vance said Vice President Vance said what he said, which is because President Trump boldly and rightly drew a red line in the sand. We have to respond, and it cannot be symbolic. The Mullah regime has to go, right? It has to go. So there are many people arguing how to best do that.
But what I'm trying to zoom in on is not the mullah regime going. That is, in my opinion, that is going to happen. That is going to happen. What I'm trying to zoom in on is the alternative. That there is no alternative other than Pahlavi.
One of the reports I was working on and I sent up, I worked on outlined how His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi is uniquely positioned to help ensure the maximum amount of stability and transition from the Mullah regime's collapse to whatever type of government the Iranian people ultimately choose. There's very specific reasons for that. If you want, I can go pull up that report and give you a quick overview as to why. Give me a minute.
That would be a good discussion to have. So let's go back to Daniel and see if he wants to add anything to that. And then after we go through some other people, then we could go back to Jeffrey.
We have something real quick about all the thing. I don't know if you can try to send that kind of a message, but try avoid Witkov. Look back on the history of Witkov actions. Every time Witkov tries something, it all goes like wrong. Like after Witkov went to negotiate with the Iranians, with the regime about their nuclear program, they were they told him, "Oh, we're gonna increase it by 0.3%," and which is unacceptable, right? And then he came to Trump like, "Oh yeah, they actually was a really good progress. They told me they will increase it only by 0.0%, right?" And after that, Israel went and started the bombardment. Kov tried to do business with Putin on the peace between Ukraine, and it all went completely wrong. Which after that, Putin came to Anchorage to Alaska meeting with Trump, which was like, damn, like American soldiers was putting a red carpet. Like, what the shit? Just try to avoid this garbage.
So, Daniel, let me give you some information that shows how politically aware the Iranian people already are. And they don't, Witkoff is hated by Iranians, right? So, given that how Witkoff is very, very much hated by Iranians, which shows how much they pay attention and how politically aware they are.
Yeah, what's their view on Trump, though, according to you, Armin?
So, view on Trump is pragmatically positive.
All right, Gary, you're up.
Thanks very much. Jeff, I appreciate the color that you've been adding over the past half hour or so. So, Armin, I've been on, I forget how many telecoms over the past 48 hours about Iran. There are a lot of different thoughts. Most of them align with what you're describing. There is not full alignment with the Pahlavi return, according to a number of people, but that's not a declarative statement. It's just what I've heard from a number of different conversations. What does seem to be clear, though, is that
What
there
conversation?
is I'm sorry,
From what sources have you heard that?
from U.S. government sources.
Okay, continue.
So with looking at the 31 provinces, none of us on this call knows exactly how the transition is going to play out. None of us pretends to know. But we do know that different ethnic groups have different security needs. And if I focus first on the Northwest, the Azerbaijanis in Iran, adjacent to the southern border of Azerbaijan, the Kurds in Iranian Kurds, adjacent to autonomous Iraqi Kurdistan. Is there a sense, because nobody's been able to project this, other than Baluchistan being a sort of a no-go zone right now for IRGC for a variety of reasons, are we getting a sense that, say, East Azerbaijan or West Azerbaijan province or Kurdistan or Elam, if any of these provinces are becoming somewhat no-go zones for IRGC and Basij personnel?
So first, let me go through the points that you made regarding Pahlavi. That information is wrong from U.S. government. No, Gary, it is wrong, and I know where they get this from. Okay, the Islamic Republic has Gary. That reaction means that the way that that smirk, that is that you don't know what's happening. Every single city and in Iran was shouting one name. And when they were being shot for it, they continued to walk on other people's blood to come out and continue shouting the same name. There wasn't a single city, town, or village in Iran that wasn't hearing the sound of people asking for Pahlavi to come back in Iran. There is not a single other name that anybody is calling for. There is not even a competition. To compare it to the situation in Iran is that there is not even a name to make that comparison. He's not the best because the best suggests that there's somebody else. He's the only name available. There's absolutely nothing else. I think it's an insult to Iranian people right now to suggest that there is anything else, given that I think they have proven to the world what they're fighting for. Let me tell you where that information is coming from the US government. For years, the Islamic Republic and the MEK have spent millions of dollars lobbying different politicians inside and also different think tanks close to Washington for years. And they have produced report after report after report. And there's a lot of investigations showing that this comes from groups like NIAC. There's And the reformers in the Islamic Republic have admitted to doing this, and they have bragged about it being successful. The MEK does this through on the Republicans, and the reformers, as part of the Islamic Republic, do this through the Democrats. When it comes to the supporters of Pahlavi, every time there was a misinformation coming from the U.S. government, and the Pahlavi supporters claimed that that was wrong, they have had a good track record of every time being proven right again and again and again and again. So just because there's a U.S. government report, like U.S. government reports are sometimes based on interest groups and people's agendas and people's biases and who has the highest influence and stuff like that. Right?
So Armin,
Just a few months ago, we were told that from think tanks and people who have like very fancy reports, we were told that Prince Reza Pahlavi has close to zero support in Iran. And we were saying that they're wrong. We had really amazing fancy reports with people, academics and politicians, like people with big names signing it, and and we're like, oh, it's only the Iranian diaspora. These so-called elites were telling us that it's only the Iranian diaspora who love Pahlavi. Now we're saying that the Iranians inside Iran, if anything, they love Pahlavi even more than the Iranian diaspora, because the Iranian people outside Iran, they're chanting his name, but the Iranian people inside Iran, they're dying for it. So with regards to not knowing what's going to happen in the transition, short term, yeah. Long term, we're very optimistic. Transitions are going to be challenging. Transitions are naturally challenging and chaotic. However, I do want to make sure that we don't focus on the challenges of the transition to not be hopeful about the future of Iran once we get rid of the Islamic Republic, because there's so much potential here. And long term, I'm very optimistic. I want to share and sell that hope to more people. And I think like sometimes people talking about the challenges of the transition period might come off as, being pessimistic about the future of Iran after the Islamic Republic. I know it's going to be challenging, but that's what you're supposed to do to get rid of the Islamic Republic, right? With regards to the different ethnic groups and the security needs, I do want to also make sure that when we're talking about ethnic groups, the challenges are not with the ethnic groups. The challenges are with the separatists, okay? Because it's very important for us not to generalize the attitude of the separatists to the entire ethnic groups. Because we don't have a challenge with most Kurdish people. We don't have a challenge with most Azeri people. We don't have a challenge with most of the Baluchi people. I do agree that there's going to be some challenges with the separatist groups, but not with the ethnic groups, right? Most so-called ethnic groups are completely in line with the national agenda of a united Iran, right? And even against the prediction of some of the most optimistic people, we saw the city of Tabriz come out and fight for the name Pahlavi, which was the last city that we thought now that we thought, even us, we thought that maybe Tabriz will not join this round of revolution because this revolution has a Pahlavi name brand. So we thought maybe Tabriz is not going to join. But Tabriz showed up strong, right? And they shouted the name Pahlavi, which is a nationalist. We heard from the Turkish, by the way, a lot of people think that there's more separatists in Turkish areas than in Kurdish areas, which is, relatively true. But one of the most famous chants from the Turkish areas of Iran during this revolution is that Persian and Turk united for a free Iran. And they were chanting that in Turkish in the Turkish parts of Iran, right? So when it comes to no-go zones, I don't know actually, that's something that maybe you have more information regarding if the no-go zone area is an accurate description. But what I do know, if we have any challenges with our borders right now, a lot of people are going to make it seem like if the Islamic Republic falls, these challenges are going to increase. But we have to remind them that we have these challenges with our borders specifically because the Islamic Republic is in power. Because the Islamic Republic has used the resources of our military to try to destroy Israel. And especially our eastern border has been ignored for so many years because the Islamic Republic has moved all of its resources for the aim of the destruction of Israel rather than defending our borders. So even though in our transition period it's going to be challenging somewhat because some separatist groups might want to take advantage, and during that chaos it's going to be problematic for us to actually maintain these borders. Longer term, given that all of the attention of our army is going to be the protection of our borders rather than destroying Israel, longer term is going to be, we should be much more optimistic about Iran's border integrity because we don't have any other agenda spreading terrorism around the world, spending money on supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hashishabi, Fatimiyun, Zainabiyun. All of that, all of the money and our resources that would be spent on that is going to be focused on protecting our borders. So short term, challenging, long term, much better for our border integrity and keeping Iran united. Go on, Gary.
Yeah. So first of all, Nowruz is not too far away. And one of the things I want to send to you is a crystal ball that is 100% accurate. Because if anybody deserves to have that, it's you on this call. Secondly, after that crystal ball arrives, you can choose when you're going to reveal what the future holds. But I hear you loud and clear. Number two is I'm an American. Yes, I've lived in Iran for different periods of time back in the 1970s. Even if I still live there, I'm an American and I don't know the Iranian heart. I can't read the inflections in people's words, so I trust what you're saying. I think that the last thing is that there can be no paralysis of analysis, meaning this: the transition will come, and yes, the pieces will be addressed as they emerge. The discussions that people in the West like to have about, well, what if this happened? What if that happens? That's a privileged position. And we fully appreciate that as Americans who do not know the hearts of Iranians. So thank you for all your very clear points.
Yeah, well, thank you. This is just, you have to understand that we're in the mid, like we're talking about this and we're, people are dying.
Yeah.
Like I'm just
So
sitting here in safety and security and my fellow countrymen are dying for this. So if I
yes.
speak like this, I'm not trying to be confrontational or rude. Just understand that where my mind is right now.
So number one is you couldn't possibly be rude. You're too much of a gentleman and a diplomat.
No.
Secondly, you did not come across as rude. And again, I'm an American. There are not 92 million Americans living under, a theocracy right now. So I yield to the senator from Tehran.
Yeah. Well, I can't unless, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Dejal.
Yeah,
Dejal, by the way, I recommend that you, because sometimes you might forget what you're saying. So I take notes before I talk. So I do suggest maybe you try that as well. But go on.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Dom. I forget who's Yeah, I know. Who was the guy who was talking about the Palestinian AFD and Musab Hassan Youssef? No, I'm the guy here, Danny Dom.
It was Daniel Dom. I took a note when you were when you raised your hand, just in case you forgot, and I wrote protests/policing.
Are we talking about Dejal? If you can keep the topic on Iran, because I want to make sure that you guys could talk about other things as soon as I leave. But do you have any?
Okay, I'll say that for later. As far as Iran goes, I just want to back up your point. I agree with you as far as what the Iranians are calling for. Everything I've seen about all the videos, everything you guys have shown, and I've looked at myself, they're all calling for Pahlavi. All of them. I haven't heard anybody calling for anybody other than him in Iran at all. I was actually surprised that it was that lopsided. I don't think they're going to accept anybody other than him. In fact, I think they're probably going to vote for a monarchy. That seems pretty obvious to me. What's it?
Constitutional monarchy, but yes.
Yes, constitutional monarchy. Absolutely. But yeah, they want a constitutional monarchy, and that's going to be that. It is going to shock a lot of people because you're going to have a lot of people think, well, why do they want a king? Well, if you know anything about Iranian culture, it makes sense. But yeah, I agree with you. I ain't saying shit about anybody else stepping up or them wanting anybody else other than him. And if anybody tries to push anything, I don't think they're going to stand for it. So I agree with you completely.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Who's next?
Yeah, I found that report, so I'll read some of the highlights of it regarding why His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi is uniquely qualified to disrupt potential authoritarian reconstruction after regime collapse. One of the first things centers on the historical continuity without authoritarian restoration. So, Prince Pahlavi's connection to Iran's pre 1979 state offers a continuity of national identity without reinstating past institutions. This matters because post collapse societies often seek familiar reference points, right? That's why Iranians are dying in big part. It's a sociological response to the disconnect between the Mullah regime that currently occupies Iran and what traditionally defines Iran. By explicitly rejecting, like him being put as a dictator, clerical rule, or even personal authority, he provides a narrative bridge. The nation endures, the tyranny does not. And it very much neutralizes narratives that autocratic blocks, rather or authoritarian blocks, whether they're remnants of the Mullah regime or Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state or whoever might, they typically weaponize during chaotic transitions. That legitimacy prevents strongman narratives, right? The other issue is because of that historical connection, it's a rapid injection of civilian legitimacy at the moment of maximum risk. So authoritarian reconstitution most often succeeds in the narrow window immediately following regime collapse when you have fear, disorder, or uncertainty outpacing the formation of legit governments. So His Highness Reza Pahlavi's unique value is his ability to instantly collapse that window by providing a recognizable anchor of civilian legitimacy before coercive actors or spoilers can consolidate their power. One of the things that lends substance to that legitimacy is his direct role in the Iranian Prosperity Project. So legitimacy alone is fragile, right? Without material credibility. So His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi's alignment with the Iranian Prosperity Project gives substance to the transition and economic normalization and anti-corruption architecture, as well as development of professional institutions and minority protections, much like his father did. This directly reduces the scarcity and desperation and subsequent emotional fuel authoritarian movements depend upon. All of that denies, in many ways, acts as, it's not 100%, at least a significant bulwark against foreign-backed authoritarian reconstitution. In other words, Putin comes in or the Chaikhams come in and take advantage of a power vacuum due to the Mullah regime being removed to set up their own particularly more aligned authoritarian government. I mean, there's no one else who has the personal, historical, or operational background that Prince Pahlavi has. And that's why he's uniquely positioned to do that.
So what Prince Reza Pahlavi also represents, other than who he is and the fact that he has the Pahlavi name, and Iranian people had a very good experience with Pahlavi, especially Iranians who never lived under Pahlavi, who just were born under the Islamic Republic, and they're noticing what their parents used to have, and some of them curse their parents for making them live under the Islamic Republic, and they're watching documentaries and reading history. And a lot of Iranians are they're not just politically aware, but they're also historically aware. And they're rediscovering what Iran had and what they are missing out of. But other than the fact that Princess of Pahlavi is his father's son, and everything that goes with the Pahlavi name and all the good experiences the Iranians have with that, there's a lot more to it, right? The Prince Reza Pahlavi has a set of values that that is basically the same values that, if they are implemented, makes society prosper really, really fast, right? So all the classical liberal values that I think most of us here believe in are also the values that Prince Reza Pahlavi believes in. He believes in democracy. He believes in secularism. He believes in the separations of power. He believes in the decentralization of power. He believes in government accountability. He believes in free markets. He believes in investments. He believes in cooperations with the rest of the world, having trade with the rest of the world, having a normal, friendly relationship with the rest of the world. He believes in all of these values. Empirical evidence shows that these are the values that makes society prosper. And Iranian people choosing Pahlavi, basically they're choosing all of these set of values, right? One thing that is very high on the list, but equal individual rights also. But one thing that you might not know, but it's a very high priority for Iranian people, is border integrity. It's really important for Iranian people. He also strongly believes in that. Another thing about Prince Reza Pahlavi is that his team and his plan, right? He has a very sophisticated team with a very sophisticated plan. And Iranian people, I mean, on my Persian channel, we have gone through this plan and his team. I have interviewed multiple people on his team. I've interviewed Prince Reza Pahlavi's main advisor and other people who have written the emergency booklet on the Persian channel. And the more people review what he's about, by the way, when he put out that booklet, he also allowed the Iranian people to criticize it a couple of weeks, and they took all that feedback and they updated it. So it was like also he was listening. He wasn't just like, here's the plan. He was also listening for people to give feedback. But the plan is something that a lot of Iranians love, and the team and the people he has around him. He also chosen, you could see that the team around him, a lot of people who used to be his fan are not that big of a fan anymore, because they were just people who were just virtue signaling the Pahlavi, like, but Prince Reza Pahlavi wouldn't be people who are based on merit, rather than people who were, how somebody will just basically keep on trying to, I don't know, suck your dick basically to make sure that you get them some room in your cabinet or in your advisory group or something. So people who were
It's called ass leakers.
ass lickers, yes, basically. Okay, yeah, like there were a lot of ass lickers of Princess of Pahlavi that eventually, when he created a team, a lot of them were not included, and they're butthurt and jealous of the people who were included. But we're very impressed by the people who are included, because Princess of Pahlavi chose expertise and merit, and and all of that, instead of who was basically praising him the most. That was not his criteria. So many people who have been spending 40 years of doing nothing but praising him and thought that they would be given a seat at the table were not given a seat at the table, because they didn't have much to offer when it comes to actually having a very good merit-based team. That's number two. Number three is a lot of Iranians have picked a supporting Pahlavi because, not just because who he is, but also because what he's not, right? Because all the alternatives to Pahlavi that were trying to be pushed on us were anti-Zionist, anti-West, as anti-imperialist as they call themselves, isolationist, command economy type of philosophy when it comes to how to manage the economy type of people. Basically, Marxists, woke, leftists, MEK, all the people who, when you are for Pahlavi, you're basically against all of those. So a lot of people support Pahlavi because they want to avoid Iran being influenced by those types of ideology, and that's the safest way to do that. So it's not just about who he is, but it's also about what he's not. He's not Zionist, anti-West, or basically any of the other ideologies that Islamic Republic has, but Islamic Republic is a subcategory of all of those people. It's not the only, like, the infection that we have right now in Iran. The Islamic Republic is just the biggest part of it. It's not all of it, but it's like now the most powerful part of it. It's a tumor basically that is in different parts. The center of the tumor is the Islamic Republic, but it does have some other elements connected to it, and we're trying to remove all of it, not just the center of the tumor, right? And also another point is that, yes, the another reason why a lot of people support Prince of Pahlavi is because for the past 47 years, the main thing that he has, the thing that he has been fighting for is not for him to come back to power, is not for monarchy. It has never been that. Not a single word written or stated by Prince of Pahlavi has ever anything to do with him coming back to power. It has never been. He has always refused to support the monarch, okay? Or him having power after the regime falls. Everything he has always been insisting on and fighting for is giving sovereignty back to the Iranian people, allowing the Iranian people to be able to choose their own destiny. That has consistently been what he has been fighting for, nothing else. And every time he takes a position, is because people have begged him to. And he has always, to the annoyance of many Iranian people, took so long to eventually accept a leadership role until there were too many people to ignore. It has been a difficult job for us Iranians to actually manage to convince him to take leadership roles, because he has always accepted the role only when there was so much demand for it that he couldn't say no to it. And what he wants to do, so whether he becomes king or not, or a politician or not, that is all up to the Iranian people. Everything he does right now is to get the Iranian people, the power back to the Iranian people so that they could decide. They don't want a monarchy, they get a monarchy. They don't want a monarchy, they don't get a monarchy. They want Prince Reza Pahlavi to be a leader in the future of Iran. He will be. Not that he won't be. The reason why he accepted the leadership of the revolution and the transition period is because we cannot have elections for the revolution. We have three phases. We have the revolution phase, the transition phase, and the post-transition phase. Only for the post-transition phase we could actually have elections. But for these two other phases, we cannot have elections. So he has accepted leadership for these two other phases because Iranian people have bled for it, have died for it, so that he accepts the leadership for these two positions. And we have to go based on what we can observe, because we don't actually have the ballot boxes to actually be able to conduct a proper election to see who gets elected. But once we go after the transition period, then we could have proper elections and see what the Iranian people want. If you guys want to know what the phases are, the first phase after the transition period brings some stability. We're going to have multiple elections. The first election is going to be a referendum where the Iranian people will decide if they want a constitutional monarchy or a republic without a monarch. Then, once they decide between these two, we're going to have an election where we choose the representatives, we call the founding members of the founding council, where these people would be writing the constitution. So the Iranian people would be electing the people who would write the constitution. And once their constitution is written, the constitution is given to the Iranian people. And then we're going to have a referendum to see if we accept the constitution or not. And if we don't accept it, they're going to have to rewrite the constitution until we accept it. Once we have that constitution, we know how the king is chosen, we know how the parliament works. So then we're going to have elections for the parliament. And so there's going to be series of elections for us to become a properly democratic country.